Welcome in everyone to another edition of the Bully the Board College Football Weekly Board Meeting. As always, it's Kevin, Seth, and Steve with you. We're talking matchup map, efficiency landscape, college football playoff rankings. Let's do it. Model breakdowns, big game matchup predictions. We're going to get into it all. Let's not waste any more time.
Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please. I'm trying to get paid. Not today, not today.
I feel like I've been saying this for 2 or 3 weeks in a row now, but damn, it's week 10 coming into week 10 in the college season. Double digits. It's November. Season is turning. The weather's turning. Personally, my favorite month of the year for multiple reasons. But yeah, we are deep in it, guys. We are deep in the season. Things are rocking and rolling. Excited to break down a lot of the stuff. So let's kind of get into it. Let's get into our matchup map here, and let's do some Power 5 breakdowns, if you will, for a minute here. So ACC, how about let's start there? Why not? So my one takeaway with the ACC so far is that, boy, do we quickly find out in just a span of 2 weeks, basically, who the pretenders were in that conference.
Yeah.
2 short weeks ago, we were flirting with the idea of, wow, are there some like dark horse contenders here? North Carolina's, maybe even Duke or Louisville to an extent, right? But 2 weeks in a row now, North Carolina just bad losses.
Yeah, makes zero sense losses.
And then to Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah.
And then Duke getting skunked, getting blanked by Louisville as well. So that conference has quickly come into focus for who's the top dog there.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, Florida State, I think, pulled away. Is that fair to say? Like, it doesn't feel like. I mean, Louisville definitely can make a case here for playing in the ACC championship and, maybe giving them a run for their money. I think that Miami meaningless loss to Georgia Tech is going to just be, we're going to look back and think, what a blunder. Because Miami is a weirdly good team, and just having that second loss, I think, screws it all up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm with you. And I give Duke a pass because of the quarterback injury and whatnot. Yeah. But yeah, UNC, that was just unfathomable. I don't know what happened there. But Louisville technically is still in the race. And is it time to say Georgia Tech? Can Georgia Tech really upset them? And I'm being crazy here. It's FSU still in the ACC. But these are all teams that had a Clemson. That's what I'm going to talk about because my oh my, have the mighty have fallen. We saw this is no surprise here, right? They were going into a few weeks ago. We were talking about this. They already had 2 losses. We were just getting ready to excuse the Duke loss because Duke was a good team, and then now this loss to NC State. I mean, the writing's on the wall. So
yeah, and Debo's like freaking out online. He's like challenging like students and stuff like. Yeah, I don't know.
He's feeling the pressures from the boosters or something, man. He's all getting all paranoid. Yeah.
Is he on the hot seat though? Like, is he legitimately on the hot seat? I don't feel like maybe he is, but I don't feel like he should be. I mean, he's
the leash is short, man. The leash is short with these big schools with the big expectations. Right or wrong.
Yeah.
I will say I don't think he should be unless he really sticks to this. I'm never doing this whole transfer portal thing. And then at some point you really got to start questioning, okay, well, how viable is this? I think he's got at least 1 more year though. You owe him that if you're Clemson.
I have to say though, this like the synergy of how bad he looks to me, and he's got to eat some of this because DJ Uyunglele looked so bad at Clemson, and from what is being reported, it was basically they told him, "Hey man, you're out. Cade's coming in. He's the guy. He's better. I'm sorry. Transfer portal." I mean, this is Uyunglele. He had the Dr. Pepper commercial. I mean, he was living life and then just was bad. And then he goes to Oregon State. And Oregon State, I mean, shout out Arizona, just beat him, but they are exceeding expectations with him at the helm. And he looks damn good.
Yeah. Night and day. Yeah.
And this is with TCU's offensive coordinator they went and got. I mean, I don't know. That's other than Florida State kind of now pulling away, which I think preseason we would have all said they were probably the favorite, them or Clemson. That's kind of interesting. But then, Clemson being this bad is one of the biggest, I think, things going on in the ACC.
Yeah, agreed. All right, how about some Big Ten? How about some Big Ten moves now? So, I mean, I don't know.
Number one. Michigan's number one. They didn't even play in my mind. I like. We're gonna talk about it, but like, yeah, Ohio State, like, cool, but like, Michigan's got it in my opinion.
I know, and I think we're all still hearing it to an extent, you know, on social media or whatever. But what has Michigan done? Who have they played? We're hearing that kind of year after year kind of narrative stick in or rear its head at this point, you know. But that's maybe a secondary point, and still, for better or for worse, like this weird like sign stealing saga, whatever you want to call it, is this weird cloud that's just hanging above their head. I don't know to what extent that's going to trickle down and affect their on-play performance. Excuse me, remains, but that's just a weird, like, yeah, I agree with you, Seth. They're the top dog. I think I don't think there's a close second, frankly, in that conference. But how does this affect them?
Yeah, I want to address the whole strength of schedule thing, right? Because that's something we hear on TikTok all day, all night. But okay, seriously. So let's just call it what it is, right? So Michigan has the 112 hardest of the schedule, meaning they're 112 from the top, right? And so it's a fairly easy schedule. Georgia has the 100th hardest of the schedule. And so my point here is that Michigan has demolished every team that they face. And I don't know what more you want this team to do other than play the teams that are on their schedule, knowing that they're going into Big Ten play, which is going to get very tough. And the point I want to make real quick is we've seen Georgia, who's a top 25 team, right, who has struggled against the likes of South Carolina. Very, very close game. And then you say the same thing about, you know, the Auburn game. You've had Ohio State struggle against Maryland, so they pull. Ohio State struggle against Maryland, so they pull in the fourth quarter. Alabama struggle against USC. Like, you have all these top teams who have struggled against really bad teams. Washington against Stanford. Washington barely escaped Stanford. And the point is, these teams are gonna have off days. That's normal. Michigan has not. So if you want to make the argument that, they've played, you know, quote unquote cupcakes, sure, but they've beaten the brakes off of every single one of them. Your favorite team has not done that. So I don't want to hear this whole Michigan schedule thing. I don't want to hear it. They're good. They're number one.
And if we look back at peers that do this, we think of Georgia's, we think of Alabama's, that they're playing SEC teams and they're winning handedly. And what do those teams go on to do? They go on to play the best talent and they beat the hell out of them and they win national championships. I'm confused. I'm straight ready to get in a fist fight via the internet with these people at this point. Like, telling me they haven't played anybody. If we look at the ELO rating for college football, you can talk about 111 schedule. Who's number one ELO? Michigan. You can't just. I think people do not understand. Like, Big Ten teams, okay, they're not all of them are that good, but these are highly recruited, highly talented teams. Okay, some of these teams have blue chip ratios of 40, 50%. I mean, these are not the same thing as their first three games when they played Eastern Carolina. I'll give you that. Right. Those are really, really easy teams. Big Ten play and beating these teams by 40 plus points. I mean, we can calm an opponent here. You know, we can use the CFB, talk here. Calm an opponent. I mean, Ohio State struggled with Indiana. Michigan struggled with Indiana for 2 drives. So, I don't know. I mean, it's not something I'm going to die on. I mean, I guess let's zoom out. If we there's the whole point of not having an ego here is how many weeks has the model picked Michigan to cover and how many weeks have they covered? Pretty much. I don't know how many, but it's a lot of weeks. I think maybe 4 or 5 times the model has picked them. And spoiler alert, it's on them this week and they cover. So while everybody's telling us they're not doing this, that, and the other, they're covering, we're printing money, we're cashing tickets. So that's what I would say. And I forecast, the market forecasts. I mean, we calculated this last week. The market is saying there's a 30% chance for Michigan to win the national championship, which is number 1 right now.
Yeah. And to that point, go by the Indiana example, Indiana damn near beat Penn State. So oh my gosh. 3 common opponents. Michigan has just destroyed them. So you're spot on.
Yeah. Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right? Shout out Michigan. All right, how about some Big 12 then? Another one, probably one of the more interesting developments that at least coming out of this past weekend, right? So we have Kansas, our dog, Rock Chalk, baby. Rock Chalk Jayhawk upsetting Boomer Sooner Nation. So that was obviously the big development in that conference coming out of this weekend. But go ahead.
Oh, so can I ask how conflicted were you in that game?
No,
Right?
not at
'Cause
all.
they
I know where my beak gets wet or whatever they say. Like I'm trying to pull it up right now to see if we can get an update on what those tickets are worth, because
Yeah.
things are kind of falling into shape. Them playing Oklahoma and beating Oklahoma, Texas playing Kansas State, a really good Kansas State team this week. We only need Oklahoma or Texas to get that second loss. And now all of a sudden, as long as Kansas doesn't lose, it's going to be really, really interesting. And that worth of that, plus 5,000 for Kansas to win the Big Ten is going to look pretty good. And what do you know? It's worth exactly what I paid for it, which is them. They're just begging me to basically just cash out and cower. But now's not the time. But yeah, we have 5,000 basically. If they make, I probably won't take any money off the table unless they made the Big 12 championship game, and then I'd hedge. I mean, at that point, we'd be able to lock up quite a lot of profit. I mean, I don't. Oklahoma's a very confusing team. That loss is confusing. But what was the thesis all along? What was the model picking up? This offensive efficiency for Kansas when they were returning like basically their whole offense was they're going to score points. When you score points, things can happen. Games can go your way. That's exactly what happened in that game. And weirdly, their defense, I don't want to say won that game for them, but kind of. Like they got multiple key interceptions in that game.
Yeah. I'm curious here what you guys think here, because now with Kansas beating Oklahoma, are we in a scenario where we're not going to see any Big 12 team make the college playoff? Because now considerably, any team that comes out is going to have at least one loss, right? And so you have Georgia. Now,
well,
of course,
no. That's not true. Because anytime that comes out of the Big 12. Sorry. Yeah. I think I meant the playoff as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. But that's the point. So you're going to have Georgia. Obviously, Michigan, Ohio State, one of them will have one loss, right? Mm-hmm. So Georgia, Michigan, or Ohio State, Florida State, and then potentially Washington if they went out. Yeah. Those are 4 undefeated teams. And we know how the CFP playoff committee tends to treat undefeated teams. Is the Big 12 now gone?
If all those teams go undefeated. I just don't know if Washington goes undefeated. I think they make the pass. Well, we'll see what ends up. I think this is a big week. We're going to talk about it. Like, this game is not a shoe-in. SC's taken so much shit. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is the spot they get up for, but this is going to be a shootout in my mind. Mm-hmm. Like, they can very much lose that game. Then they have one loss. Oregon has one loss. I think then Oregon's highly probable to get in. Well, not necessarily get in, but to go to the Pac-12 championship, potentially, I think, win that game. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we get a lot of questions about this, and I find it hard to answer because there's so much ball left and there's so many key games left. Like Oregon and Washington both still play SC. Obviously, that Washington SC is this weekend. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan play each other. Georgia is going to have to play somebody, LSU or Alabama. LSU, Alabama play each other this weekend. Like, so we're going to learn a lot in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So segue into the Pac-12 here then. So who has a better shot? And again, more games to be played, but a one-loss Pac-12 team is presumably Washington, or a one-loss Big 12 team, maybe presumably Oklahoma.
That's a good question.
So yeah.
So I would say Pac-12, in my opinion. It should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say
I tend to agree with you because of the level of competition within the Pac-12 that presumably, again, Washington would have faced up until that point. But yeah, so digging into the Pac-12 then a little more this week. Still, I mean, it's effectively the 2-dog race. Still, I think has been for a couple of weeks now. Who's gonna stumble first? Oregon, has I'll say a layup, but they got a layup in Cal this week, and Washington, we'll talk about it a little bit later, plays USC. So
tell that to USC, that layup of Cal. I mean, I agree. I'm not expecting Oregon to stumble here. In fact, we're going to talk about that from the model's perspective. But yeah, can I shout out Arizona? Can I shout out?
Yeah, I was going to say, can I get a Wildcat one time?
Yeah.
Hey, it was coming. I knew it was coming.
I'm just saying. I mean, we had a futures model. We worked on that pretty hard, and what did it spit out? That was one of the picks. Arizona over 5 wins. We're sitting at 5 wins right now. We can't lose that bet. So we'll see. Yeah. I'm hoping maybe we get it over UCLA just for some personal reasons. But if not, I'll take. I think we're gonna have a chance here to win against UCLA, to win against Colorado, or win against ASU. I think we can win one of those games. I don't necessarily think we win all of those games, but I think that the 6th win can come in any of those. And this is a team that's definitely on the up and up. It'll be interesting to see what they do next year, because this will obviously give them a bump in recruiting, in my opinion. And as they move to the Big 12, that all of a sudden looks like a very unique environment compared to the rest of the Big 12 environments there. You get to live in the desert where there's no winter, basically. So I don't know. They're very interesting there, how that's panned out, and they've kind of gotten better throughout the season.
Yeah, well, let's not be humble here. Arizona's beating 2 ranked teams back to back with a chance to make it 3 in a row. And so, to your question, Kev, like I think absolutely the 1-loss Pac-12 team is better than a 1-loss Big 12 team, just because of how many top 25 teams are in this conference this year and how good they've all played. And to your point, Seth, I mean, ever since Fifita has come in as a backup quarterback, that team looks inspired. I mean, he's playing well, but everyone around him is playing to another level. And I don't know what the ceiling of this team is going to be in terms of, their bowl game potential, how high they can get up there. But I'm excited for next year if they can kind of keep this thing rolling. But yeah, this team's absolutely one to be feared. And I'm with you. I think, I don't know if we go 3-0, but I think we go 2-1.
Yeah.
Pac-12 has largely followed marching orders, if you will, and not cannibalizing itself to this point in the season. So
they came close. So Washington, I see that.
They're trying.
I was going to say that.
They've tried a couple times. But I mean, at this point, like, I don't know, can we be really surprised? Like, in hindsight, SC was never really a top dog.
But SC is going to do its best this weekend to get payback, right? If they could very much derail Washington's chances here, and then now all of a sudden everybody's got one, and then SC beats Oregon somehow. Now everybody's got there's 2 losses. I don't know. It's the chaos is not necessarily over yet.
Fair point. Okay. All right, how about SEC then? Last of the Power 5. This one is fascinating because of the Alabama equation or like variable, if you will. We thought they were, I don't say dead to rights, but we basically pegged them to, it was a shoo-in that they were going to win or lose another game, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that that's over yet, but it looks not as probable as it did.
Agreed. Yeah, they've really turned a corner. They've really figured out some things top to bottom. So they look like the Alabama of old.
It weirdly happened in that second half of that Tennessee game. Like that was when it was like this is enough, guys. We're Bama. And it just
flipped. Flipped. Yeah.
I guess they were on a bye last week, so we're really talking about one half of football that's happened since then. But that half was a pretty compelling half of football, and maybe that we're overreacting there. I mean, the market's putting this at a 3-point spread for versus LSU, and they're home. So the market is saying very much LSU can win this game. Obviously, they're not sneaking up on them like they did last year. I think they're very much aware that they cannot lose another game if they want to keep their hopes alive. But can I say the biggest thing confusing to me is Georgia's beatdown against Florida. Like
biggest confusing thing. Okay.
It's confusing because how do they struggle against Vandy? They have a bye week.
Sure.
Florida scored first in that game. I'm like, here we go. And then I was wrong and it did not go. And they did their thing. I'm confused. Like, I don't want to get too high after that game, but I'm like perplexed because I got this one really, really big game against Florida. And then I got this one weird game where they shit the bed against Vandy, one of the worst teams in all of college.
Right. But for me though, Georgia just seems to get bored. Like these Bulldogs just play with their food, and that to me is what is so frustrating about these really good teams. That and that's why
they haven't blown out anybody else other than that, right? I mean, they struggled with Auburn, they struggled with Vandy, they struggled with who else?
Well, I'll tell you who they didn't struggle with. They blew out Kentucky, didn't they? And that's what I mean. True. Like they get up for these big games and they just play down to their competition. And that's what's so maddening about this Georgia team, for me at least.
Yeah, and that's without Brock Bowers too, that they like kind of went off. So I don't know. We're going to talk about it in a little bit about what the model has this week for that game, but I don't know. And then does LSU LSU is not in the driver's seat, but like they beat Alabama, they beat Georgia. Like certain things go a certain way. Like you could see like whoopsie daisy, they could figure a way out if certain things go their way. So are they a live dog here? I don't know. I mean, there's just the SEC is just confusing. And then we got to talk about it. We're hearing it loud and clear. I don't really understand it. And maybe because I'm dumb, but Mizzou. We're just hearing it over and over and over. Mm-hmm. Why are we so impressed by this team? Are you guys impressed by this team?
Personally, I am not. I'm with you. And who's being blinded here? Are we tuning into more noise, or are Mizzou fans just being fanboys and girls? And
what's their biggest win is against K-State. They lost to LSU, and they beat K-State while their quarterback was injured, and they kicked like the longest field goal in college history in order to win that game.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, I mean, they put them at 12. They've only lost one game, right?
Kentucky when they were ranked.
Right.
But that was, agreed.
But what has Kentucky done this season? They've started well, and then they've ever since Georgia came into town, they've kind of petered out. Who did they lose to? Oh, LSU
by
10. Yep.
So do you have the schedule up there, Steve? I remember they beat K-State.
Oh, here, I'll go back to it.
Yeah, so they beat K-State. You said they beat Kentucky. Who else have they played in the SEC?
All right, so let's see. They've beat Vandy by 17. They lost to LSU by 10. They beat Kentucky by 17, and then they beat South Carolina by 22. But, and here we go. Lo and behold, they're going to end out this season against Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. And then they have Arkansas. But like that Georgia, Tennessee, Florida stretch, that's going to tell us who Mizzou really is, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think this is very interesting. People's logic of who has not played anybody and who has. I would make a pretty dang strong case here that Mizzou has not played anybody. And the one team they did play, they lost by 10 to LSU. So look, willing to be wrong here. I'm just not coming to the same conclusion everybody else is.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, we mentioned it. It is now November, which the turning of the months generally means the rankings, the college football playoff rankings come out around this time, and lo and behold, they just did a couple days ago. The first official ranking, which generally doesn't hold a ton of weight when all things are said and done and the dust settles, but nonetheless, we thought it would be good a discussion to kind of juxtapose what the CFP rankings are versus what our internal power ratings are versus some other respected ratings like Massey Peabody. So here you'll see we got the top 15 as ranked by the CFP committee. Any surprises for you guys, at least in the top 4 or even top 10?
Yeah, these are the most illogical arguments I've ever heard. So how do you put Ohio State at 1? You're basically saying they have a strong resume. They have Ohio State at 1 because they've beaten good teams and they have a strong resume. And then they put Notre Dame at 15, but then you leave Washington out at 5 and you put Oregon at 6, which would mean that Washington has the most impressive win, beating the 6th team in the nation. Explain this.
Right.
This is illogical.
Does anyone ever know, and has anyone ever uncovered what metrics or rating systems go into the committee's determinations here? Is that a black box, or what's your insider knowledge into that?
To me, I think it's a black box to me for sure. It's a bunch of opinion. I don't think I know they are presented with statistics on these teams, but again, as people that do this all the time, sitting and talking with the public about information, let's say not everybody is equally equipped to understand that information. And I don't think it's any different here. It's a black box to me. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, speaking of that, let's go ahead, Steve.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I mean, they've talked about, these closed door committee meetings, and, what was that one year they had all these sort of like guest celebrities on here. It's like, really, why, of all people, why are you here? So I think the one point I want to make real quick, Kev, is that, this is what we're trying to explain to people too, is that the college football playoff rankings, I think it's no surprise. These things are incredibly subjective, right? Like, obviously they put some sort of, objectivity into it, but they're incredibly subjective versus our power ratings are just, here's where the data lie, right? Sure. And let's just map them and aggregate them and see where they lie. And that's where you see some of these differences. But I'm with you. There's just so much that can be illogically or that can't be explained because it is illogical in the CFP playoff rankings, and that's no shock.
Yeah.
So let's
one further thing I just want to say about that. Also, in their defense, it is illogical. There are flaws. The one thing that they need to do that we don't, because yes, ours is data driven, and I'm sure to a large degree so are theirs. Their ratings need to account for losses, right? And so they are forced. Their hands are forced to a certain degree, right? They can't necessarily put Notre Dame as high, even though they might be that good of a team, because they have 2 losses and other teams only have 1 loss. So I get that there is some confinement that makes this a little bit nuanced. But I don't know. I mean, the Washington one to me it's pretty egregious.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's in the opposite vein of the black box. We obviously have up there on the screen our own bully the board rank here. So we don't know what goes into the CFP ranking. Nobody really does. But walk us through, Seth, if you will, what goes into our ranking and how we come up with this, because we don't. It's not a black box for us.
Yeah, no, not at all. So we're using a handful of statistics. It's probably just conservatively probably around 15 different offensive and defensive statistics, a combination of those which are derived by play-by-play, and then talent, things like blue chip ratio, overall talent. I'm trying to think. Yeah, like some record stuff, ELO. But yeah, they're based completely off of actual play-by-play data, fundamentally. And then there's some adjustment that goes on to look at things like you said, like ELO and talent and things like that. And to some degree, right, it's other than Mizzou, and it'd be interesting to get to have a conversation with Massey Peabody on, like, we're pretty close on pretty much all of these things with another analytical system that's doing something very, very similar in Massey Peabody. But I will point out, even though we're pretty far off from Mizzou from 12 at 37, so are they at 19. I mean, they're putting a pretty big difference between these skills of teams, not as much as we are. And I think also the thing I will say that maybe is flawed for a team like Mizzou, we also are anchoring, or not anchoring, but we do have a prior of who this team was last year. So who was Mizzou through all of their games of last year? We still do have that in the model and in these statistics. So we think that anchors some of the signal. At this point in the season, you could argue that maybe that's a little bit redundant, but we find that that variable is still predictive through, all the way through the season and even till this week, right? Until week 10.
Yeah. Now, can I ask a question though? Just so in the name of full transparency, because it's something that we get to. So, we talk about, the CFP's sort of, discrepancy, if you will, between the wins of Ohio State and Washington and where they're ranked. We see here on our rating, Oregon is ranked higher than Washington, even though Washington beat Oregon. And what I want to talk about is, when we talk about this play-by-play data, and I'm not trying to do recency bias here because it's only one game, right? That's only 1/9 of what goes into this season's rating plus whatever's from last year.
Well, it's way more than that, right? Because it's every play for 9 weeks of data.
Yeah, well, assuming equal amount of plays. I know it's not.
Yeah.
But like you see what Oregon did to Utah, right? And then you see what Washington. I mean, Oregon beat the brakes off Utah this last week, and then you saw what Washington did to Stanford, kind of skating by. And again, I'm not saying this one game is representative of why they're ranked, how they're ranked, but on that, to your point, Seth, about that play-by-play data, Oregon, even to today, they are still the more efficient team on both sides of the ball than Washington is, even though they lost that head-to-head matchup. So that's kind of we have an explanation as to why our ratings are our ratings.
Oh yeah. Well, a couple of reasons I would point out, right, is one, by that logic, and I keep pointing this out, like, the upsets can exist by that logic. So you're saying, like, and why there would be a betting market where there's a favorite and an unfavorite. Well, it would just be clear every team, the favorite would win every time. Well, that's not how that works. 1, 2, we're also projecting what is this team on average? What is this team average? We live in the real world. A team doesn't necessarily play average every time they go on the field. Sometimes they play above average. Sometimes they play below average. Sometimes they play average. So that's the one forecasting thing. And then the other thing, to be honest, who have these teams been since that game? because we're now not also describing what those teams were at that point. We're also describing what they've done since. And Oregon has kind of pulled away, in my opinion, and beating these other teams quite handedly. And Washington, not so much. So, I think that's the other thing too. We're adding a number of games since that matchup that Oregon actually looks quite a lot better on the play-by-play. And if you just zoomed out, even in those games, box scores, they look better. So I think that's a kind of an interesting take that, yeah, I agree. I'm hearing as well, but I don't really get that logic, but that's the way I would think about it or describe it. It's like you're wanting to look at who these teams are on average. You're not trying. The best thing I can tell bettors is try to get away from trying to predict edge cases unless you have a good reason to exploit edge cases. Like, hey, there's a rookie quarterback and there's no way that whoever sportsbook put up a model, they can actually correctly price an edge case. Okay, go after edge cases because those are probably going to be really profitable. If every week you're betting spreads as if this team is going to play 2 standard deviations better than they usually do, that's not going to happen very often, even if it happens at all.
Right.
So every week they're going to be. Do they do this every single week now until the end of the season?
I think so. If not every week, it's quite often, maybe every 2.
It'll pretty much. I think that's the frequency. So.
I mean, it's good TV. I was on bated breath.
Well, yeah, Ben is doing his job. That's definitely one of the goals of it. So yeah, we'll continue to break this down as it develops and as more data rolls in and as more games are played. So, but I
just want to point out Michigan at number 1 via ours and Massey Peabody. Yes. What do you know? They haven't played anybody. Huh? Interesting. We take who they played into account here. These numbers do. Whatever. I'll keep beating the drum. I guess I'm just gonna have to bet Michigan to win the national championship.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's the only way.
Yeah,
for every person that tells me that they haven't played anybody, I have to bet a new bet.
One more bet. Whoa. You're gonna be over leveraged pretty soon.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right. How about let's look back real quick at model week 9 performance here. So overall, 3-4 record, standing the season total at 49-46. So just over 50% here. So the one play from this past weekend's card that isn't showing there is Penn State.
Yeah,
because that was technically at
it was 2%. But yeah, it was one of these weird edge cases where we had to shop the line. Blah,
it was technically negative EV at open, but then we got the line.
Yeah, we bet 30 anyway, so we bet a 30.5, and I think basically we got the number right. It's just that the defense let them score, I think 20 something points on defense, or else that safety would have been a cover. Yeah, I don't know. Penn State really did not look that inspired, but again. These are bad. These are bad packed. These are bad Big Ten teams. I don't know what we're talking about. These are cupcake wins. These are no big deals. Interesting. The college football playoff just ranked Penn State 11. Did they? They're 11th, I believe.
They're
the 11th team, barely made out alive. But these are cupcake wins. These are cupcake wins. Okay, interesting.
You know what? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's one crowd that has been more quiet than normal, would you say?
James Madison,
JMU fans.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I don't want to hear it ever again, you JMU fans. I didn't know your shitty school existed until 4 months ago, and all I hear every week: JMU going to be undefeated. JMU going to go to the top 25. JMU going to go to the playoff. JMU couldn't even cover against another school I haven't even heard of, Old Dominion. Are you kidding me?
Oh, man.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah,
this was embarrassing.
That was disappointing. 100%.
I had to flex my deep ESPN packages to watch that game, and I couldn't even make it to past halftime. I was like, this bet is done.
No, I went live and I was talking about the whole JMU letdown, and some dude's like, "No, bro, JMU won that game." Like, but they didn't cover. I don't give a shit if they won.
Yeah, what are you talking about? JMU won. Who cares?
Come on, we all know it. Good teams win, baby.
Yeah,
good teams cover.
Yeah. You're talking about how great this team is. They got so many things that are coming. Look, like model pending. I ain't never placing another JMU bet in my life. You heard it here.
Man. They really rubbed you the wrong way. I see.
Oh
that.
yeah, you get one shot, one opportunity, man. This is an 8 Mile. I don't know. I don't want to hear it. JMU, you're pseudo dead to me.
Well, nonetheless, the model trucks on 49 and 46 overall, like we said. So we
hey, can I just real quick? I haven't been keeping count, but I feel like every time we bet on Arizona State, they have covered as well. Speaking about the Michigan, Arizona State as dogs.
Arizona's doing work. I'm an Arizona guy, University of Arizona, bear down. It's usually FASU, but when it comes to model, people always ask us, who's your team? It doesn't matter when it comes to making money. Like, I will bet on ASU every weekend for the rest of my life if there's value there. I will bet on ASU to beat Arizona if there's value.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut up.
The boosters still call when they want their checks. They don't care how you make
100%. They do. All right, boys. How about we look forward a little bit to some of the key matchups this weekend, this coming weekend for Week 10. So first up on our list, the Bedlam series, right? This is what they call it. OU,
the last one.
The last.
Wow.
Yeah. OU's moving. Yeah.
Wow. They're going to SEC. I didn't even think about it. How sad.
That's true. That's true. So OU, Oklahoma State. Our number puts it at 5. Opening was at -4. Think it's moved. It's moved a couple points in Oklahoma State's favor. So you can get at when you check this week. Yeah, sorry.
This is as of tonight, like a couple maybe an hour ago.
Sitting at -6. Now it's circa Pinnacle 6.5. So yeah, this one's interesting. What sticks out to you guys on this one? Because two things stick out for me. Number one, talent. That's pretty stark and obvious here. But Oklahoma is, and this isn't on this chart here per se, but you can tangentially get it. So they're number 2 in the country overall. Oklahoma is in 3rd and 4th down success rate. So they're you can infer that they're very good at sustaining drives, 3rd down conversion rates, getting points on the board, generating long sustaining drives that way. Oklahoma is also number 2 in EPA per rush allowed. So staunch against the run. And Oklahoma State, for what it's worth, they don't pop on paper in terms of any of their efficiency metrics. So I'm a little surprised that this spread is at a 1-score game so far. But what say you guys?
I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything. No, I was going to say you go ahead because this game makes 0 sense to me, and the way Oklahoma's been playing makes 0 sense to me.
Yeah. For me, two things stick out to me, right? So one, and I was on here last week, and I said, hey, I think OU is going to cover this game because I believe that they are truly a 0.09 at that point defensive EPA per play team. They had a bad game against UCF. Yeah. And Kansas is a good offense. Kansas is a great offense, but I mean, OU looked terrible on defense. And it wasn't just the explosives, like, someone, got beat deep on a coverage. I mean, it was just a missed tackle after missed tackle. And what concerns me is UCF seems to do it through the air, and Kansas, for the most part, seem to do it through the ground. I mean, they did do both ways, don't get me wrong, but they seem to do it through the ground. And to your point, Kev, about OSU's defensive EPA for rush, that better come in handy because guess who's the nation's leading rusher? It's Ollie Gordon, OSU Cowboy. So if they can't contain, if they can't wrap up, this is going to be a long day from Oklahoma. And I've seen 2 back-to-back games where their defense has just looked miserable. And I don't know what to believe anymore. And so do I think OSU's a better team? No, I think Oklahoma truly is the better team here and should win this game. But I mean, twice now the tape's out on how to beat them defensively, and I'm concerned. Now, with that being said, if they can stop Gordon, they can box up the run. I don't know if OSU has the QB play per se to take advantage of Oklahoma, but I don't know if they can do that. So I'm concerned, and I get the points.
Yeah, this game makes 0 sense to me. Of course, I want to believe. I mean, the model slightly leans Oklahoma. You're seeing the market buy that up to 6. We're still like kind of midway through it. What ends up happening? To your point, that's a lot of compelling information analytically. When I look at this schedule, I didn't realize Oklahoma State's been having a sneaky good season. They've beaten ASU. They've beaten Kansas State. They've beaten Kansas. I mean, this is an interesting team. I wouldn't say they've beaten Cincinnati. I don't think that's all that big of a deal. So I don't know. I mean, is this where the Oklahoma kind of party not ends, but just continues to slide, and they get that second loss? I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting to see where this closes and see where the market kind of points this. There's nothing that sticks out to me, because anything that sticks out is going to be in the direction of Oklahoma. And it's clear that the data we have on them is a little bit suspect because of the way they're playing right now. And I don't know if something happened in that Texas game that, like, I know one of their wide receivers is out for the season in that game. So is that a big enough deal that's causing all these issues? But that doesn't make any sense because they're struggling on defense. Like, I don't know. For me, I'll watch this game because I'm really curious to see. But if Oklahoma wants to win a playoff game or go to the playoffs or even go to the Big 12 championship, they have to make it out of this game alive.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. No two ways about it. All right, how about some SEC matchups for you? LSU and Bama. I'm quite excited for this one. Our number puts it at -4 in favor of Alabama, and that's where the market opened. So as we ran and reran the numbers, there's no value on either side. Slight lean, I guess, in favor of LSU, but technically speaking, no alpha on either side as we sit here today. So this one's interesting because, like, we talked about Alabama sort of coming into their own, finding their groove, right? LSU, the unstoppable force, at least offensively, right? They're just humming on all cylinders. Jaden Daniels, like, Heisman candidate, things are working well on that side of the ball for sure. But you take who gives what gives here first, because Bama and their defense, what's more sus? Yeah,
Bama's defense is good, or LSU's defense is sus, and then Alabama's offense is sus. But LSU's offense is one of the best. I want to bring us back to week 1. I know it's flown by and it was a little bit ago, but I want to come back to this situation where I think if things go just a little bit differently, we're in a whole different situation. I think it was play 1 or 2 of that game, LSU versus Florida State. They got a huge explosive. They got down to the goal line, first down, second down, third down, go for it, get stopped. LSU, I believe, went over for 3 drives in the red zone that LSU got to in that first half. I think if they score touchdowns in those drives, they end up beating Florida State. I think we're talking about a very different situation that they're currently at. And I think that had to be a learning situation. Yes, we know they stumbled against Ole Miss, but I think if we get into a shootout here, this is on the biggest stage, primetime SEC. They beat Alabama last year. I think I give the slight lean to LSU here in being able to outscore Alabama. If this becomes a defensive showdown somehow, and it's not a tit for tat, Alabama roll tide all day. But I think this game is going to they're going to try to make it a shootout, and I don't see how Alabama actually survives in the shootout here. I think they're going to have to really, 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 really step up defensively. We've seen teams like Texas that are good, but they're nowhere good offensively. Do the same thing, and I don't know. So I guess I give a slight lean here at LSU. I think at open you could get 4.5. So I think if you have one of those, you're probably feeling pretty good. But a field goal seems pretty right here, and I would wonder if it gets below a field goal, what ends up happening.
Yeah. I mean, you see the offensive metrics pop on the screen here. I mean, and to boot, like you mentioned it, they're number 1 in echo rate in the country, number 1 in EPA per rush, early down EPA, you name it. Like, this is a damn good offense, right?
Yeah.
So that's who they've consistently been pretty much all year. Bama, on the flip side, yes, they've turned it around recently, but they have only just done that recently, turned it around. So who's more likely to be who's more likely to play to who they are?
On average,
in my opinion, that's LSU.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm just looking because we were talking about this for the Bama Tennessee game, right? And at that point, Bama had a 0.22 offensive EPA per play average there, and so they've actually had a slight downtick, even though they've looked better in my eyes. At least on from the eye test. And so, to your point, Seth, I think that's spot on. I mean, Bama is just not equipped to get into a shootout, and LSU is. And so that's going to come straight down to it. Can Bama's defense hold LSU? Because if they can't, this game's over. If LSU scores more than 21 points, I can't see Bama really kind of keeping up past that point. I think 21 is kind of where your threshold's at if you want to win that game.
And we saw Bama be able to hold a really efficient offense in Ole Miss. In the second half, we saw them be able to hold an efficient Tennessee. So Alabama can do this. I think I'm picking up in the lives like this is feeling like a public dog here on LSU. I don't know if it's a slam dunk. You can see where the value here is. We're not really saying there's anything, especially at this current number. But I think that's the game plan. Like if you're Bama, you got to win this game 28-21. Like the minute that game goes over 28 points, for LSU, the game is over. It will. Yep. I just think it'll just they can score so quickly. That can we expect to see the same from Alabama? I guess when LSU's defense is that bad, maybe. But I don't know that that's the Band-Aid you're looking for this game.
Yeah.
Where you think you're going to just go tit for tat? Because I think LSU ends up just eking one out.
Yeah.
Should be good. I think that's an early game too, so looking forward
to that. That's nighttime SEC, I believe.
For sure? Okay.
No, I'm not positive. I thought I saw an email. Because when we went to LSU or when we went to Bama, somehow I got on the team's football ticket list, so I get tickets. I get an email for tickets for every home game for Bryant Denny. So I thought I saw it was like announced that it would be the nightly SEC.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, all good. Either way. All right, let's jump to Pac-12. A Pac-12 matchup then here real quick. So SC and Washington. This is at SC. Our number puts it at 2 +2 for SC. Market opened at 3, so again, no edge on either side of it as far as the model is concerned. So this is another one, Steve. How do you feel about it? Because this is another one that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because especially from a mental modeling perspective, but then even looking across the board here at how these teams stack up, Washington is number 3 overall in the country in EPA per pass and number 3 in echo rate as well. So they're a good team. They can move the ball just like SC can. But are you surprised by this field goal spread?
Yeah, very much so. And I know Seth made some arguments earlier about this could be a shootout. And SC's offense is right there with Washington's, right? I mean, you can see right there on the EPA per play. They're virtually the same. And we saw Washington struggle last week against Stanford. A much, much, much inferior team. But, to kind of use Seth's argument as well, on the flip side, like if the average SC team of this year plays the average Washington team this year, I think Washington wins this game handily. I don't think it's a blowout per se, but I think it's I think one possession closer to 6 or 7 than 2 to 3. I just don't see SC's defense really being able to hang in there. And Washington defense, I'm not saying is phenomenal, but I think they're good enough against a really elite SC offense. Don't get me wrong. I think they're good enough to at least hold them at bay, and Washington just kind of run through that porous SC defense. So I'm surprised. 6-7 would be a more reasonable number to me. 2 to 3 just seems too low.
I would push back a little bit. The model is saying an average play of both these teams would be 2, not 6 or 7. Yeah. The question I guess I would ask is what's going on with Washington, and how do you measure this analytically? I don't have an answer, and quite frankly, I'll have a deeper question for you. Do you try to measure something like that analytically? Do you try to explain what's going on in 2 weeks worth of data to make you feel better about what's going on, or do you say that's just variance? I don't know. This is going to be a really interesting game. I don't think it'll be the same type of game it was Oregon Washington. I guess I've seen this Pac-12 gauntlet before, and SEC comes out with the 2-point win for no reason, and Washington is just shaking their head, and it kind of messes everything up. And I think SC has the offense to do this, just like the argument we kind of made with Bama. Like if this gets into a shootout, now Washington is a very potent offense, more potent than SEC or SC. So it's a different argument because the tit for tat thing could very much go in Washington's direction here. But if that was the game plan, or if that ends up happening, I think anything can happen in this game. Washington, it wouldn't be crazy to me if SC wins by a touchdown. Like I don't think it's that crazy.
I know. I mean, you're right. That's the market basically feels the same way. But yeah, planting the seed in my brain that this is the game that potentially knocks Washington off its pedestal in the Pac-12 would be quite.
I'm not calling the shot here. I'm not calling the 3-point ball here. I'm just saying a 3-point spread where our model's putting it basically right there. Like variance here is one possession, and one possession game could be. I mean, think about if you're SC, you're saying this. That's exactly what happened against Utah. They had that game won. They went down and got the game winning drive. They just they had like 40 seconds left, and variance put them on the wrong side of that. I mean, Washington could very well fall on the other side of that as well.
Right. Yep. Oh, brother.
Yeah,
all right.
I know. To me, this just looks like that Oregon-Utah matchup. And it's different because Utah has a really good defense. But I look at Washington and I just don't see how this team is gonna be stopped. And to your point, Seth, I think this game is going to come down to one or two defensive plays. And to be fair, defensive drives, let's say. And to be fair, that could happen one way or the other. You're absolutely right. Yeah. I think both of these offenses are going to have an absolute field day come Saturday. But I literally don't know if SC gets 3 drives without Washington scoring some kind of points.
Yeah, I mean, and what did they give up? They gave up like 48 or something to Cal. I mean, Cal's not an efficient offense. Does that play a role here? I mean, that's got to be a lot of plays to be on the field if you're a defense giving up a shit ton of points. Can you play a game like that 2 games in a row and be able to kind of keep up? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe this is the year. It's just different for the Pac-12.
Yeah, I hope so. All right,
how
about one more? Shut up. How about one more, huh?
Maybe. Let's do it.
All right, time to put up or shut up, Mizzou. Okay, we've been hearing it. The model is on Georgia this week. Our number puts it at -17. Spread opened at 15. So go Dogs, baby. Brock Bowers or no Brock Bowers, it don't matter, baby. Let's roll. So yeah, this one, curious for different reasons, but again, how good is Mizzou? I think we will get the answer to that this weekend. Yeah. If they can keep it close, if they can keep it within 2 scores, or dare I say even have it be a field goal game, or maybe even pull an upset. Like, all right, yeah, we'll all eat crow perhaps on that one.
Yeah, feed it to me.
But yeah, that's fine. But I'm not. I don't see it. You line up the metrics here. I mean, still even a further breakdown, like Georgia's number 3 in 3rd and 4th down success rate allowed. Like their defense is really stout. And on the flip side of that, Mizzou is number 99 in the country in success rate on 3rd and 4th down. So how are they going to sustain drives? How are they going to do what they need to do to beat Georgia? I don't know.
Yeah, for me, this is one of those games where, again, I'm with you. Georgia clearly is the better team here through and through. And the biggest risk to me is I don't know which Georgia team's going to show up. I think it's going to be the Georgia team we saw against Florida and against Kentucky, where they're going to be, up per se to be on firing all cylinders. We had these questions last week. Who are they without Brock Bowers? Well, they're good enough to put up 43 points against Florida. So we know that they're still good. I'm just hoping we don't see the Georgia we saw against, South Carolina or Auburn or, it's that first half of Vandy, if you will. But yeah, I think this number is spot on. I'm personally staying away, but I think Georgia really should come. I'm sorry. I want to say I'm personally staying away from like the nuclear option because I don't think this is a slam dunk like we talk about, going mega, mega dick well lock. But with that being said, I do feel that Georgia has this.
Georgia's the better team. I want to bring us back 1 year ago. Mizzou almost upset a championship. We didn't know then, but a championship caliber Georgia team. They barely made it out of Mizzou alive. I believe this is in Georgia. Yeah, this is back in Georgia. That was in Mizzou last year. They ain't sneaking up on nobody. The public is all over Mizzou. Everybody's on their dick saying they're such a good team. They've played one SEC team that's good, and they got their shit kicked. I think Georgia rolls here. The questions, though, I'll what is this team with Brock Bowers? Have they figured it out through that bye week? I don't want to take the Florida game as an answer that, of course, yes, 100% they have. They looked good. They looked efficient. We know Florida is a talented team, but they're not very good this year, but they just have a lot of raw talent. Mizzou is a good team. So I'm with you, Steve. I don't think this is a nuclear whale lock. But I do think that this is the right side of the bet at the 17. Now, that being said, let's call a spade here. The market is a little bit against us as of now. This opened at 15, got all the way up to 16 and a half, and now is being bought down now back to the 17. So it'll be really interesting to see where we go from here. As this more mature money comes in, does it agree with us or does it disagree with us? I think the telltale sign here for all of you people that are Mizzou, the thing you really want to see is this thing close at 13.5. You see this thing close at 13.5. I think that Mizzou is going to have a really big, they're probably going to be able to move the ball and probably be a live dog, I'm sure. And this game won't be a slam dunk. I think we get closer to that 17. I think that this is a very opposite game. Our numbers put it right at 17. I think it's a good bet. I feel good about it, mostly because of what happened last year. I think Georgia is the better team, but they're mostly not going to forget about this team. This is a team that they said, oh shit, they almost knocked us off our pedestal last year. We can't let that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say, put me in, Coach. I feel fired up now. Maybe I will lock it.
Go Dogs.
Maybe I will.
I mean, we've seen that they can do it. Now, this isn't the Georgia of the last 2 years. They aren't. They're not as talented. They're not as deep. They're not as efficient. At least they haven't been. They've shown glimpses of it, but they've also shown glimpses of struggling. We saw that this Mizzou team was in there with LSU, and then they just kind of petered away at the end of the game. It's going to be a different story to cover a 3-possession spread. You're going to have to get going. You're going to have to get going quick. But we've seen Georgia be able to do that against Kentucky. We saw them be able to do that against Florida. I think they do it here again. I really do. And I mean, they're better in every category. They're more talented. They're at home. I mean, what more are we asking for from Georgia here? Georgia just has to do their job. As Kirby Smart would say, they just got to chop wood. Just keep chopping wood.
Oh, all right. This will be good. Yeah, I'm excited for this one too, because mainly again, just to answer the question, like how good is Mizzou? So I'm kind of curious to see how that all plays out. All right. Week 10 model predictions, baby. We got several plays on the card this week. Yeah. So again, we've been doing this for the past 3 weeks, I believe. We've been going live on YouTube, breaking down and hitting the openers as they go live at the market making books at Pinnacle, at Circa, right? So we're on there, we're shopping lines as they happen in real time. And that has been going on, frankly, behind the scenes all season long. We just kind of started doing it live on YouTube, but that is one of the chaotic ways in which we continually are realizing CLV on our model predictions and continuing to lock in edge and alpha. So if you guys haven't, strongly suggest you give us a subscribe there. Check us out on Sunday. We'll be live. What is it? I guess, what is it now with the time change?
It's still 2 p.m. Eastern.
Still 2 p.m. Eastern. All right, because
you guys are the only ones that don't change.
I just don't. It fucks with my brain every time I think about
it's all good.
Eastern and time changes and shit. So
imagine having to live through it. We actually have to change time.
Fair enough. All right, so pretty interesting card here for week 10. So what do you guys? What's sticking out to you guys? Would you glad, Ron? What's a game that's piquing your interest?
I can't tell you how. Like this card got me so excited, and it scares the shit out of me because I like almost every single one. It's loving the favorites to just do what those favorites should be doing this time of the year, which is dominate. We got, teams that have been dominating. Oregon, Iowa State's kind of low key been dominating teams, to be honest. We got Ohio State on there. Georgia, like we talked about, Michigan kind of keep doing their thing. So I love all those. The ones that make me so nervous, Iowa, they just announced the firing of their offensive coordinator, a bunch of different changes there. Obviously their quarterback's out with torn ACL. That's an interesting one. I think someone told me today that's the lowest open in college football history, open at 29.5.
Yeah, history. And Iowa, for what it's worth, has also been like they've been part of the number 2 and number 3 games as well. For
yeah.
the lowest
so they know how to win these games, you know. But so does the Northwestern, to be quite frank. Cincinnati is another one that feels gross is probably it's the right word. Cincinnati has been a team that has basically just completely underperformed, and I don't think has covered a game all season. Ironically, I think they covered a closing spread against Oklahoma, but just a team that's really, really, really weird. We're sitting here as of Wednesday, and it tied Ball State. I was just going to say but it's first and goal. So Bowling Green.
You had to say something. I knew you
I don't know. And then what do you know? Old Faithful, baby. ASU is on here. I mean, just going back, just like Kirby Smart says, keep chopping wood, baby. Keep chopping wood. They are not bowl eligible, so all of these games are their frigging bowls. You know, they're showing they're getting ready for next year. I don't know. We'll see.
Do one of you guys have either the Pickett app open or whatever real quick? Can we just rapid fire what we got, what our numbers are for these various games? Because obviously there's a couple on here that don't meet the 2% criteria, but because the numbers we got them at became
I can get it up pretty quickly here.
Okay. Well, while Seth's doing that, Steve, any other games that that you're most excited about, or what's on your eyes?
Yeah. So for the ones we have on here, like I said, I'm with Seth. I do like a lot of these. Love Michigan. I love Ohio State. I think they get up for this. I'm really here. I'm pretty excited as well about the Wake Forest game. I think Duke's really in a bad spot with their backup quarterback play. I think Riley Leonard came through and he had a couple of good plays to start with, and it's just kind of been all downhill, evident by that Louisville beatdown. So I think it's a good spot for Wake Forest. And I love Oregon, and I get a little uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie, at those 4-possession games in college football, because it doesn't take a lot to go wrong. You need that team to really make sure they're going for kind of the jump. But exactly. But with Oregon coming through at number 6, outside looking in for that CFP playoff spot, they know they've got work to do. I expect a very focused and dominant Oregon team against Cal. So I love this too.
Yeah, we got a nice little refresher for those college kids. Hey, remember, you are behind the 8 ball, because I think they really respond to that. Okay, in rapid fire, these are the games we got and what we actually got our money down. We got Iowa -6, Houston +4.5, Georgia -15.5, Iowa State -1, Michigan -30.5, Cincy +5, LSU as a bonus bet +4.5, Ball State +6.5. Oregon -23.5, Wake Forest +12.5, Ohio State -18.5, and Arizona State +12.5. Baby, let's go. That is the full card.
Yep, another big slate. So yeah, a lot of good numbers again. I know a couple people were tuned in to the Sunday show, Sunday Live, while we were doing it. So hopefully people were able to lock in some value with us, because some of these have already moved, and so you likely can get a lot of the numbers that we got at open. So
pretty much all of
them. We do what we do.
Yeah, even Cincinnati's moved in our direction as of now. The one that has been is kind of petering around, it hasn't moved, is the Wake Forest Duke game, which is really interesting. That did get to 11. And then popped back up to the 12.5, 13, and it's kind of still hovering there right now. So that'll be really interesting to see where that ends up closing. And then obviously Georgia, we talked about. Does Georgia come back and go through the 14, or even get at 14, or does it go back up? Because basically right now it's come back to open, which makes sense. If we're saying the number 17, and then you get up to the 17, the people are going to start buying the other way. And so we'll see where mature money comes in on that. I'm excited for Michigan Purdue. I have to say, if Ohio State won by whatever they won by, Michigan better win by 50. And like the perfect slight, because Michigan was like, what, we're number one. Like, are you kidding me? You'd put us, no, we're number one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's another big slate. Perhaps as you wake up and maybe you're watching this video for the first time, hopefully we're 1-0 already. Bowling Green just kicked a field goal, even though they were first and goal at the 1. So shout out. So let's just hope we don't get a pick 6.
Roll Tide, baby.
Roll Tide, baby. All right. Yeah. Week 10 is upon us, boys. So very, very much looking forward to the weekend. Should be a good one. A lot of action, Jackson, for sure, both from the models perspective and just from overall matchups.
Good
seeing
games.
How things will. Good games.
I feel good.
Seeing all shakes out.
I'm willing to eat these words. I feel really good about this. We're not going to have a 9-0 weekend again, but this feels like a good weekend. This feels like a lot of good value, and the market is kind of agreeing with our bets here.
Famous last words. So I got nothing left.
Hey, I'm willing.
Yeah.
Kobe, I got to call my shot.
Shoot your shot, baby. Yeah. All right. That'll do it for us, boys and girls. Appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, it's Bully the Board. We'll see you next week.